Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I've been sharing a lot of gift guides on my blog, and one of the things that I've wanted to share for a long time, not just holiday related, is our favorite watercolor supplies. Watercolor is one of our favorite ways to get creative and do art projects. I actually started doing watercolor paintings maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and I started just with my kids' little watercolor tray just like this, because one afternoon I had some time and I just wanted to do something creative, and this was all I had on hand. And I actually did a series of paintings that I ended up hanging up on my kids' wall. So one of the things that I really love about watercolor is how easy and accessible it is. I love also that you can be done with a painting in just one sitting, unlike other paintings that you have to wait for the paint to dry, or you may layer or things like that. Watercolor is really simple and it's short. So when I get time to do an art project, I don't have a big chunk of time. So I love that watercolor is so fast. And it's also super kid friendly. So you can see my kids are sitting here painting. They do a lot of watercolors. We do a lot of things together. It's great for doing like nature journaling, which we do. So what I'm gonna do is it's just gonna be a super brief little video, but I'm just gonna show you some of our favorite watercolor resources. So if you want to either give like a basket of watercolor supplies to somebody who enjoys art, yeah, hold on one second, Molly. Then you can put some of these things together and give it as a really fun little holiday gift. Or maybe you just want to learn something new, or do it together with your family, just take on a new hobby. Any of those reasons, whatever you want to do, I'm going to share some of our favorite gear and supplies to get started. Okay, so like I said, one of the things that I love about watercolor is how simple it is. So we have a few different options. One is this paint palette. This is, I believe it's 36 colors on here, and this is what my 5-year-old uses. This way she doesn't have to mix anything, but it gives her a lot of different color options. We also just use these really simple trays, these 8-color watercolor trays for my toddlers. So my 3-year-old and my 2-year-old, it's a really easy and inexpensive way for them just to have fun. We have these round palettes, round paint palettes, and so we have we've used these for a while, but I actually upgraded my kids last year to these folding paint palettes. So they each have their own one. And again, what I love about watercolor is even after this dries, the next time they paint, they can just get their paintbrushes wet and dip it back into the color. We can add more as needed. Watercolors are great because it really doesn't take...
with some green.
Okay, good. Watercolors are great because it doesn't take a lot of paint. Just a really small little dab of paint goes a long way. One tip that I will just throw out there is all of our watercolor supplies stay in this basket, and we keep it on our homeschool shelf right here. You can actually see this, I think, is where some paint dripped out. But we keep it really accessible, and I highly recommend doing something like that. If you want watercolor, like if you want this to be a habit and something that your kids can do, make sure it's something that is easy to get out, easy to put up. And I talked about paint. We have this palette and this that come ready to go. We have these that come empty. And then what we do is just refill them as needed. We buy the tubes of watercolor. And I have a link. I should have said this already, but I have a blog post with all of these things linked up for you, easy to find. So I'm gonna add that link to that blog post down below, but you can find links to these. I linked up a kind of like a mid-grade and a high grade paint option for you, but we just keep them all in this jar. And then again, everybody can just keep their paints filled up. These little flat areas are great for mixing colors and reusing those. So the next thing that I want to say, so I talked about palettes and paint, and now I just want to mention just really briefly about brushes. Okay, so just kind of side note here about brushes. So I have some brushes linked for you in the blog post, but I just wanted to say that, you know, when you are buying things for young kids, whether they are like lower elementary, higher elementary, or even middle school, and they're just starting out, you don't know if they're going to stick with it, I would still definitely suggest not going with the cheapest option, because with any art supplies, if you buy high quality art supplies, even like kind of middle of the road art supplies, it's going to make the process a lot more enjoyable for everybody. So don't buy really cheap brushes, because all of the hairs are just going to come out while you paint, and that's just frustrating. Get paints, you know, paints like this that aren't super cheap, because the pigments are going to be better, the colors are going to look better. And get paper. Make sure you buy watercolor paper. It's thicker. Your paper isn't going to, like, as you're adding all of the water here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so you can see here what I'm talking about. This is my 2-year-old's, and I don't mind giving her just printer paper because she's just throwing on some water there. But I don't want my older kids who are actually going to take their time to have this experience. So definitely buy heavier weight paper. This is watercolor paper that we use. My one child wasted a little bit there, but that's okay. Watercolor paper is a heavier weight, which means it's not going to kind of wrinkle up when you are painting, and it's going to absorb the paints a lot better, so they're not going to just smear all over. So do make sure that you buy watercolor paper. I do have 2 options in the blog post. I have one for a pad of paper like this, which you're not going to get as much paper in a pad of watercolor paper as you might in drawing paper. But I also have a stack of like bulk watercolor paper. The paper isn't going to be quite as, and I can show you an example of this as well. The bulk paper isn't going to be quite as white as a pad of watercolor paper, but it's still going to be really nice. Like you can see here, we have a whole stack of watercolors here, and I can try and show you an example. So this is one of the bulk watercolor papers. So you can see it's not quite as white as the paper out of the pad, but it's still going to give you a good effect. And if you have kids who like to sit down and do like 10 paintings at once, having something like this where you get a whole bunch of paper all at once is really good.
There's going to be a bunch of seagulls in there.
You can see some of our kids' paintings. This is my 7-year-old's bluebird. Didn't he do a good job on that? This is his little chickadee here. See, Jack, is this one yours?
No, that's mine.
That one's Shed.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that's Jack.
Okay, so this is my 9-year-old's painting. Okay, so Jack is doing a painting of a bass, and he says that he doesn't like it. So this is one thing that I just wanted to share about watercolor again, is just how versatile and how, like, even if you have something that you maybe aren't loving, you can always either take the paint away or add on top of it. So if you get your paintbrush wet without any pigment, you can actually lift the paint up from the paper. So you can, it's kind of like erasing, and you can take it up if you have like a spot that you don't like, or mix the paint, blend it all back. So it's really, you know, just keep playing around with it. You're not going to be an expert from the beginning, but it is definitely something that you can learn and grow in over time. Yeah, Molly, good job. So speaking of learning, I did also link up this book in my blog post with all of our watercolor recommendations. This is just Everyday Watercolor, Learn to Paint with Watercolor in 30 Days. So it's just a really fun, simple book that you can either do yourself or make it into part of your curriculum, or, you know, let your kids kind of play around with. It just has a lot of different techniques and things to different skills and ways that you can do your watercolor painting. Okay, and that's it. Like I said, super short, but these are the basic things that you would want to get started, if you want to either help somebody else get started on watercoloring or get started yourself. Again, it's a really great hobby for busy moms or for kids who just want to start a craft and be done with it in a pretty quick turnaround. You can find all of the links to everything that I shared, the paint, the palettes, the book, the brushes, all of those things, the paper, it's all gonna be included on that blog post. You're gonna find the link down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up. While you're on the blog, check out the other gift guides. I'll leave a link to that as well. We have lots of different ideas, lots of things that we just really use a lot that we wanted to share with readers. So check those out as well. Any final words, guys? Anything you want to say about watercolor?
I love it, and you can enjoy it wherever.
Wherever, that's right. You can take it with you.
Too.
You love it too, Molly. You gonna start painting a bird? Yeah. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys next time.
I was never the one to write up a song for just anyone. I was always the one to find myself lost in long conversations, cause I've always been told that things will unfold if you keep on waiting. But then you came along and proved me all wrong. I was so mistaken, cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby. I was never the one to give up the ghost. No, I was so stuck. I kept on playing my part, wanting to give up cause nothing was changing. But with you it's so clear, and now that you're here I see colors in every spectrum. Guess I finally learned my lesson. Cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby.